All right, welcome to this lesson, and this very well might be the final lesson. We just need to get the contact section working and also bring back that ring graphic in that section and also turn it into a wireframe. So we'll see if we can get this all done in one. If not, no big deal. All right, so let's come down here to all of our areas right here. We're going to put a contact section function that doesn't exist yet right there. Let's copy that. And we'll put this right here. So function. Alrighty. So for our contact section, we're going to work on that section itself. Like there was a couple things. There's just a couple bits of markup, like the H4 element. This span where it says put me on the list. This is actually a button, a call to action, and then a paragraph. Okay. So the first thing I'll do is we're going to set some elements using GSAP set. So we're going to set the Y% to 100 on the H4 element and the inner contact span element. So the inner contact span right here, inner contact right here, and then the span elements right here is the only span element inside of this entire markup. That's the put me on the list. That's basically the anchor text of a call to action button. So we're taking the H4 into span and we're hiding it. Notice how both of them are inside of a mask element with overflow hidden. So when you hide them at Y% 100, you don't see them anymore. All right, so if you save this just by default and we go back and we look at this section over here, down, let's scroll down to this. We're not going to see it because we just set it out, hidden out of view. So now that we have that, we're going to create a new timeline for our contact section, and I'm just going to paste this in real quick. So contact timeline, GSAP timeline, scroll trigger is inner contact. Start, I had to modify these, which are typically, they're not my usual, but that's the values that I found that worked well. All right, and then once we have that, we just have to utilize contact timeline. So contact timeline. All right, we're going to do a to call. We're going to take line top. This is a class, so we have to put a period. And line bottom width 100%. Then make sure we wrap those in quotes or semi-quotes, whatever. And that'll work very well. So now if we come back here, you'll see these lines. They're very, very, they're not high contrast lines, but they both come in. Now we're also going to do a 2 of our H4 and inner contact span. Sorry, I'm botching this up right now. There we go. Y% 0. Save it. You see how they both come up? Look at that. Nice. And then finally, one more call to inner contact P. For the paragraphs, we're just going to take it an opacity from 0 to 1. Because remember, we set it to 0 right here. So now we come down here, and there we go. The final thing to do is to get the ring to come back, because I wanted to show you how you can bring these things back and forth, these 3D elements. So right now it's at like a Z index of 3.5, not a Z index, a Z value of 3.5. And so we can't see it. It's kind of like behind us right now. And all we have to do is just modify that Z value to bring it back, and also toggle on a wireframe value just to show you how you can do that. You can update the materials of these things on the fly, which is very cool. All right, so for that, we have to go back up to one of our initial sections for modifying or for getting the 3JS. So in init3js, I believe if we come down here, init3js, this is where we want to work in order to get that contact section stuff working. So for me, I'm going to take a real quick look at our code just to make sure I'm working in the right place. So just underneath these two values right here, these two calls right here from the timeline, we're going to put in a function that will end up helping us toggle the wireframe. I think we'll do this after though. Let me do that after. what we want to do now is just create a new timeline called the contact timeline. Const contact TL equals gsap.timeline. And again, scroll trigger. Now this time we're going to be utilizing some things that we haven't utilized before. But for now, what we're just going to say is we have our scroll trigger. Let's end that scroll trigger. But after this scrub equals true, we're going to paste in this code right here. So this is what this looks like. So we have these abilities, these hooks to hook into: on enter back, on leave back, and on leave. All right, so if you recall what those are, especially from toggle actions, these are also methods that we can tie into when the scroll trigger, enters the viewport, if it enters back, if it leaves back, etc. It's calling a function when this comes in here that doesn't yet exist. We have to create this function, but the purpose of this function is just to control the material, like whether or not it's going to be the wireframe or just the regular material by default, which is what this second value is. It's true, true, false, false. And you'll see why. I know this is confusing to you, but you'll see why in a second, why we're doing this. And then we have a third parameter, which I will describe in a second. So let's create that function right here. So this is the toggle wireframe function, all right? And here's the three parameters. It's the model. Is it going to be a wireframe or not? And then opacity, all right? So I decided to include opacity in this function, which is what these values are, because if you leave it at a 1 value for the opacity of a wireframe, it had too much contrast for my liking, essentially. All right, so what happens in here is we traverse the model itself, and if it's a mesh and there's a material, as we traverse over this model and the data within the model, then we want to change child.material.wireframe is wireframe. So if it's true, it'll specify this property, wireframe property, as true. If you do this, it'll show you a wireframe of the mesh itself. And then we have the opacity and then the transparency. Okay, so if I go ahead and save this, I don't think it's gonna work yet because we only just defined a contact timeline. We can see it's not actually being utilized because it's grayed out. So what we want to do just right down here is simply call it the ring.position. We're changing the z from 3.5 at this point to 0.3, and then x to 0.4 and the y to negative 0.23. Again, you play around with these values with dat.gui to figure out kind of what you want to do. Now let's see if this works. So it doesn't work. Oh yeah, contact TL is not defined. Okay, so I'm seeing an error. Okay, so, oh, I think I know why. There we go. I had it misspelled, so make sure you don't misspell things. There we go. So now we come down. Now this is looking pretty dark, which wasn't my anticipation or my expectation of it. So let's try. Let's leave this at like 1 and 1 just to see what the value is here, because I'm not sure why it looks so dark. So you can see how much it sticks out when you do that. And again, this is probably just a matter of personal preference. But what's really cool is notice how it's changing right here. Well, how is it doing that? How is it going from back and forth? Well, remember, everything's kind of set on this scroll trigger timeline. And basically, that's what this on leave back and on leave is doing. It's calling toggle wireframe when it leaves, and we're setting it to false for the wireframe. So that's how it knows to toggle when it leaves that section. And that is basically it, unless I'm forgetting something. So I would leave it to you to perhaps try to maybe do more sections, do more interesting things with this project. because you know, I mean, you can put a footer down here, or you just keep on adding sections as a matter of practice, essentially. But that is basically it. And at this point, what you would want to do, let's assuming everything's working well, and you want to get it up and running, you run npm run build. All right, so after running that, we can see the dist folder where it has our assets, it has our fonts, it has our images. We have everything else down here of our index.html and the ring. So what you can do to simulate what this will actually behave like or act on a server or a web host when you get it uploaded, we can run a code, and that code, if I go back, let me go. Yeah, sorry. I think yeah, I know what to do. Sorry, just hang with me 1 second. Yes. So I have an npm package called serve. It's just like a really lightweight server that'll emulate a server. So what we can do, so I think it would probably be npm I serve, and then that would give you access to run serve hyphen. Here, let me make sure you can see this behind me. There we go. All right, so serve hyphen s dist for the dist folder. So when we run this, you'll see that we have this right here. So this network, this will allow you, like for instance, if your phone is currently on the same network as the PC, like via Wi-Fi, then you can just type in your phone's browser 192.168.1.15:3000. You'll be able to see it on your phone or other devices. And this is what it looks like. So the thing is we don't see the loader. Oh, that's right. I forgot the loader real quick. Let's yeah, I completely forgot the loading section, and that is my bad. I think I screwed some code up here. There we go. So let's save this. I'm going to go back to the index. And remember, we wanted to have the loader, and we didn't include the HTML for that. So what I'm going to do is just copy that, paste this in. Notice it says loading screen now. So if we save this, we can't. I have this. What do you call? Let's view our terminal. We need to run npm run dev for that in order to see this new change that we just made. Yeah, see how this is loading or has this little spinning thing? Well, right now the JavaScript doesn't know what to do in order to leave that. So yeah, unfortunately I went a little bit ahead of myself, but let's just continue on getting this code done, because we have to load in the assets essentially in order to get this to work correctly. All right, so for that, we're gonna call a new function, and that function is basically, let's see here, let me make sure if it's not inside of our final, yeah, okay. So what we'll do is outside of this, the way we've been running functions, for instance, has all been inside of here, and we could just call another one, or we could just come out here, and I think we'll start like just above, right here. All right, and what we're gonna do is, what I ended up doing, there are libraries for preloading assets that you can use. One is called images loaded, but I want more than just image files. I want to load the GLB file, I want to load the MP4 file, and some images. So what I did is I asked ChatGPT for a function that would load those files, and you know what? It worked perfectly. So I'm going to simply paste in what that looks like. So it's a fair amount of code, because preloading is not the amount. I mean, this is all it is. It's just, you know, a one page of code essentially. But you can see where it says function preload file URL, and we're checking the file types. If it's a JPEG, a PNG, a GIF, then we're going to do this. If not, if it's an MP4 WebM, we will do this. And then we can have the function preload files itself, where it says all files are preloaded. We could take our loading screen for the query selector loading screen, class list add hide loader. So hide loader is right here, transform, translate y, -100. And also we have a transition on the transform property on loading screen itself, which means when this gets called, it will animate out instead of just instantly leaving the screen. So that's what we do here. So in this then call, that means they were successfully loaded. We can now reveal the, we can remove the loading animation section. So let's see if that works. We're gonna go ahead and come over here. Looks like there's probably an error. So no errors, it says. All right, so let's refresh. Oh, I know why. Because I didn't actually put those calls to use. We only defined some functions, but we didn't run those functions. Okay, so what we want to do is, this is the very last step, I promise. Sorry, I'm a little bit, it's very difficult because there's a lot of code here. So what we do is we just call it right here. So we call preload files, and we just mention in array format the location. So the ring.glb, the images /rings.jpg, slide 1, 2, and 3, and then hands.mp4. Let's save it. And notice how it's right away. So when we're on our computer and we're not emulating like a 3JS, or not 3JS, I'm sorry, a 3G phone, for instance, it'll load very fast like that. If we change the throttling over here in the network tab to fast 3G, for instance, we'll see it take place a little bit longer, just barely though. So that is how you do the loading to ensure that all your assets have loaded before you try to reveal the UI and they're not showing up. Very, very, very cool. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that. Yeah, we went over a lot. Now, obviously, at this point, if you watch the whole course, you still might be kind of like in a whirlwind, or so to speak. What I suggest doing is just taking small ideas and projects. You can go to other sites, these types of advanced front ends that this whole course is all about, like awards.com. And just take a look at, for instance, the elements section. These are small elements, and you can click on them, and you can say, hey, I wonder how they did that. I'm going to try to create doing this something myself. You can start off with something small instead of just trying to build a whole landing page from scratch. Try to get your feet wet with small things, and then work up to the bigger picture. So in the end, you can always simply also join the Discord server. If you have any issues or you're working on something, you want to share work, that would be great. So as always, hopefully you enjoyed the course, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.